good reader is a good leader. Today we're checking on education and social development, place of library. And we have those who should know in the house. And together in the next couple of minutes, we shall be discussing this topic, education and social development, place of library. I have in the studios with us here this morning the former chairman of the State Library Board, who has also served as the librarian at the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Dr. Taufik Salisu is in the house with us. Doctor, it's nice to have you join us, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. We also have in the house the Director of State Library Services, Mr. Franklin Giwa, is also in the house with us. It's our pleasure having you with us here, Mr. Giwa.
Thank you very much.
And with Moses in the house, we shall be looking at this, what I would call all-encompassing topic, education and social development. Even library on its own, it's something that we can discuss from now till tomorrow because of so many things involved. So we put all this together this morning, and we will also at some point in the course of this discussion have the opportunity to call us and also make your contributions. Moses, you want to fire the first shot?
Let me go first.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Dr. Taufik Salisu, I want to turn the topic to a question. So I want to ask, what is the place of library or libraries in education and social development?
The library is a veritable tool in the educational process, and the educational process is also an inevitable tool, a crucial tool in not only the social development, social, economic, and political development of any nation. Education is important, and of course the library supports education. So it's like it's one step and then another and then another. So you've got to have information which is crucial to education. Then you have to process this information, store them, and retrieve the information where required, and these will be done by the library, and the byproduct of these is required for the educational system to succeed. And of course, the education of any nation, the level of education of any nation will determine the level of social, political, economic development of the nation. You see, they are interwoven. And of course, there cannot be any educational attainment in any nation if the library is not well put together to support it. And that's why we're lucky in Nigeria, like in many other countries, that the educational system is assessed based on the level of the library development in such institutions. In other words, for example, in the university system, programs are not accredited if the universities don't have adequate library to support such programs. So the library services in the institutions are crucial to the accreditation of programs. That illustrates how important library services are in the educational system. And of course, the educational system is also important for the attainment of social, economic, and political development of any nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, anyway, with that background, I think we are really setting the tone for the discussion. But let me quickly ask from Mr. Giwa, since you're in charge of a director in the State Library Services. Now, without adequate library, institutions will not be accredited, here I said. But let's look at the library services for the public generally. When you look at the number of schools we have around us, comparable to the number of libraries we have in communities, you begin to wonder, are we really encouraging the culture of reading? Because look at, apart from school libraries, someone who lives somewhere along Ajibo Road needs some information from a library and will have to go to Kuto. Okay? By the time he looks at some of these other things in May, don't you think that we are not also encouraging reading culture by not ensuring that we have libraries closer to people?
Well, thank you. I can't agree with you more. Essentially, a library is important in our educational system. We know that. But what we have seen over the ages is that we place emphasis on the wrong things. Basically, even our culture, if you look at the name for a school, it is called Ilewe or Ileko. You can't have a pot of beans without beans being cooked in it. You can't have a pot of egusi without egusi being cooked in it. You can't have okra soup without okra soup being cooked in it. So if you have a school without a library, then it is not Ilewe. It is not Ileko. Because the basic ingredient for Eko is the books, is the equipment, is the environment. If the environment is not conducive, then you can't have a library. Importantly, I must add here that if you look at libraries, even in counties, what we call villages here, abroad, they are equivalent to our so-called four-star hotels. You get to a library and you think you are in an hotel abroad. But what you have here are glorified, run-down buildings, dilapidated structures, or empty classrooms used in schools as libraries. We, as a people, have placed emphasis on the wrong things, on materialism, without emphasizing reading culture. And of course, our children cannot read in the kind of structures we call libraries because they are not in tune and they're not in tandem with the modern society. The society is growing and is improving in terms of IT, in terms of e-libraries all over the place, but we are still living as if we are in the 19th century. So that's my take on that.
Okay. Now, I will still stay on you. Now, you're still looking at, taking a look at perspective of this discussion. Now, if you look at the importance of library to educational development, it's a very key factor. Even if for the purpose of your research topics that you have to get some, but what we find out is that these days we have most of the libraries loaded with old books and all of that. And we already have various new development in technology. Although this issue of standard of education falling, it's an issue that is neither here nor there, depending on which side. But I know personally, I don't really feel the standard is, going down. Perhaps number of failures are more. That's a topic for another day. But if we are talking about a library that somebody wants to use, and you now get there, you discover that you are having books of yesteryears. Do you think the young ones would want to, when they can possibly open their phone and get some of this information online, will this not also be part of the reasons why the libraries are not being patronized?
Thank you. That's a very good question. If you go back, probably if you recall our theme for that conference, we called it repositioning of public library service, public libraries in the state for effective service delivery. Repositioning itself underscores the fact that we realize that we are not in tandem with global trends in library services. We also realize that we are not standing where other libraries are standing. So just like a car whose wheel is not in alignment, we needed realignment. That's why we brought that conference. That's why we put together that think tank of professors and doctors in the academia to come and look into the situation that we have. We know we already have a bad situation, a very, very serious situation we call it an emergency. So we brought them together to kind of plot the way forward, to kind of give us a new direction so that we will be in line with other libraries globally. If you look at it, libraries globally are now into e-libraries. They are now into electronic libraries. But that is not to say that the books are not important. They go hand in hand. The essential factor is that we are not making the libraries look like what they should be in the 21st century when everything is in electronic. If you look at every child, secondary school age, has what we call these mobile phones. With the mobile phones, you could do anything. You can do anything with the mobile phone. So why are we not using mobile phones in terms of access to our libraries? Why don't we have learning management systems where wherever you are, you can have access to libraries? We call it remote access. Why is it that our libraries are not conducive? Why is it that the atmosphere in the libraries, if in fact you have dusty environment, dusty books, old books?
We'll hold the librarians responsible for that.
so if that is the case, you don't expect the young ones to come into those libraries. So if the libraries mirror the image of what is happening in the society, where you have IT, phones, and what have you, then they will come to the library. It's just like using chalkboard with chalk in classrooms when you now have interactive classrooms. So and we are still using chalkboard that, like the 18th century, and you expect kids to be in school. You expect your kid not to steal your phone and spend hours browsing and using it instead of reading their books. So we are not in tandem with what is happening globally.
Okay. Dr. Salisu, you have been in the university environment as a librarian. You've also had the opportunity to lead the board at the state level here in the past. Now, from your experience, what do you think will probably be the major factor influencing the attitude of young ones towards using the library? Is it a matter of maybe home, or just that, like he said, the environment is not appealing, or perhaps what these days the elderly ones are saying that the young ones are lazy? Which of these really is affecting this culture of lack of reading these days?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say a few words in Yoruba.
Well, you also translate.
Amukureru. On the war.
Okay.
Okay, it's not the eru that you look, but Isale. There is a misplaced priority in our educational system. And of course, you know, the reading culture is almost zero in this country. So that's what we're saying, or the trend now is that you catch them young.
Okay.
That's when the issue of school libraries, which is an important aspect of public library services, is being emphasized. That you cast the iron when it is hot.
Yeah.
So by the time the iron becomes cold, it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to cast. So we're saying we're going to catch them young. So the public library system should include the school library system in its services, have programs for the children, interesting programs that will bring the children to the library. And once they get in tune with the services of the library at that age, then they will grow to use library the more. So the governments in this country have not been supportive of libraries. They do not see library as an important aspect of our development. It's like, what are they doing in the library? Whereas it is a crucial factor. It's a veritable tool that can get education to develop. And education is the main tool we need for other developments in the country. So there has to be a shift, paradigm shift in the provision of library services. And I think with the kind of workshop seminar we had, I believe is the right step in the right direction, where emphasis is now being placed on the application of ICT in the provision of library services to the public. You know, the public library is established by government and is funded to a greater extent. In fact, I would say 90% is supposed to be funded by the government from taxes. So if you take my tax, if you take the people's tax, you must provide services for them in tune with the kind of taxes you collect from us. So public library service is supposed to be free, and it's free, but people don't come because they do not value libraries. But by the time we put the library in its proper perspective, provide ICT, use ICT applications in the library, people, younger ones will be encouraged to come. Because we expect that when kids come to the library now, you know, in those days, they say, hey, shh, you are in the library. No, we are now saying that have some parts of the library where people can come and yell and have their own programs, enjoy themselves, and so on. And of course, there is nothing wrong if you have like a production unit within the library, public library, where kids can use their hands, can use their intellect to produce some items of educational things that are beneficial to them. What stops the kids from coming into the library, public library, and listen to music, listen to dramas, watch dramas.
Old music
yeah,
or
so
something?
we're saying that the trend should change. And it's going to change with the kind of start we have in Ogun State now. When I was the pioneer chairman of the library board, it was like the old system. How can the head of an institution say, oh, didn't you buy newspapers last month? You still want money this month to buy newspapers again? That's the level at which people put libraries. But we told them that it's a dynamic process in the library, and that the process must continue to go on and be supported by government. So if, of course, you know, the basic thing is funding. So we need adequate funding to get the library.
That was
to
the
perform.
part of the discussion, in the later part of it. You want to?
Okay, my question goes to Mr. Giwa Franklin. Well, Doctor just talked about making libraries more attractive, you know, to the younger ones. So, you as a director, and of course, other librarians in Ogun State, what are you really doing to make libraries more attractive, you know, to the younger ones we have now?
Thank you. Like he said, like Dr. T.M. Salisu said, there's a paradigm shift in the library system. We are moving towards making things happen in the library. We are going to have what we call maker space, where kids can come and play and produce things, like he said. We are going to have different literary activities. His Excellency, Prince Dapo Abiodun, MFR, is very passionate about the library, and that is why he's placing the round pegs in round holes. That's why we have a person, a very dynamic woman like Professor C.D. Shaw, has been placed at the Aims of Affairs of the Ministry of Education. She's equally very passionate about education and passionate about the library, and she's having so many things lined up. We're going to be having literary activities. We're going to be having even teams where children can play, where children can add drama. We're going to be having library weeks where we'll invite authors to come and read books to the children, where we can even invite the governor to come and read books to the children, where we can invite somebody like W.S. Wole Soyinka to come and read to the children. So we have a lot of things. And even we're also thinking about a hall of fame where we'll have pictures, we have memorabilia of most of our senior citizens and those who have had one thing or the other for the state. So we have so many activities lined up for the library. We're also planning to rehabilitate dilapidated structures. If you look at our libraries in Ilaro, in Shagam, in Ijebu-Ode, and even particularly the one in Abeokuta, the entire frontage and premises of the library has been totally eroded and destroyed by the road construction. It is no longer very accessible to people, and those of our readers that used to come and patronize us has decreased because the environment is no longer conducive. So we're looking to rehabilitate such structures and make the environment more conducive for readers to come to the library. Thank you.
Okay. Now, let me go in the other direction in this discourse. Now, we've been talking about conventional libraries where possibly people can go get books and all of that to read. To what extent? Because Doctor is here, the profile is very heavy. You are here in charge of the activities presently. Now, beyond this conventional public library or school libraries, corporate organizations also have to keep records and keep information that's required referencing and things like that. As professionals in this field, are you also considering what you can do to also assist? Because if, for instance, OGTV as a corporate organization, we have a library here, maybe most of the things you will see will be visuals, but then you still have some other things that would be research materials. And if we don't have someone who is a librarian, for instance, who can handle such, we might not be able to really do what is appropriate, and we can't appreciate the necessity of a library. As professionals, I don't know who is taking that one now.
Yeah, let me start on that, because I had worked in that area before.
Oh, okay.
And I beat my chest. That was part of the library here.
Don't beat your chest.
Not hard, not too hard. Yes. The OGTV had a library, and I put quote. I went to the media library. The temperature there, the weather was not controlled. And when you know the temperature is high, all your films will fade away. You remember when we was using videotapes? Not now that we use CDs and so on. We had videotapes. And because the environment is not controlled, the high temperature, high humidity, they will fade away. And that's why in those days you discover when you have programs on TV, the pictures will not be stable because of the poor quality, deteriorated quality of the videotapes. So I came here and I told the GM then that, look, my friend, this place has to be controlled. The weather, and the place was air conditioned. They had a librarian in charge, and we were also concerned with institutional libraries, because I was a consultant to Concord Press of Nigeria. In 1986, my first sabbatical leave from University of Lagos, and I hired a librarian for them. I set up the library, and we ensured that the newspapers were miniatured. In other words, we converted them to micro images. In other words, microfilm and microfiche. We did that. The other media houses started coming to Concord to film their newspapers for prosperity, for conservation, for preservation. So when I finished that, we also got in touch with independent newspapers. I got their system also digitized. Before we said microfilms, but now because of the happy marriage of communication technologies, then we're now digitizing the materials in such places so that they can be preserved for long. So we also expect that the library, the public library system will move along this line so that the materials there will not deteriorate. And of course, by the time we use ICT, digitization will come in, and then those old materials, you say they are old, but are very, very important. In fact, newer materials cannot substitute. They can only complement the older ones. And that's why we say, even though with the technology around, the technology will not supplant librarians. Technology will not supplant information workers. Rather than supplant us, they will complement our work. And of course, the librarians too will have to be educated in the new technology. Otherwise, similar institutions, similar outfits that can perform the work of the library will take over from us. That's why librarianship is also dynamic. So we go with current trends so that we can provide, if you like, old services in new formats, because of the new dispensation of ICT.
Mm.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Giwa Franklin, Doctor talked about digitization now because I mean, we are in an era where, in fact, there are online libraries. You can go download app on Play Stores and any book, virtually any book one could get. So, but how in tune are also the librarians? I mean, we have now, talking about how digitalized they are, how knowledgeable are they in the use of all these ICTs and so on.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I have to correct an impression that the internet, digitalization cannot supplant the library system or the old system of the library of books, of printed materials. Essentially, what you have in your Google, what you have in the phones are downloaded by people. And I must tell you that not up to 40% of the entire collections of human memory from antiquity has been put into those phones. So if you rely on those phones, you'll be the loser for it. Well, let me go back to your question. Most libraries today don't employ librarians that are not digitally savvy, because that is where the world is going. Every librarian from any library school, you can quote me, is trained to be digitally savvy or computer savvy or internet savvy. So most of the young librarians are already computer savvy and digitally savvy. And we're also planning, like I said, there's a paradigm shift. We have this lined up. We have a lot of projects lined up, especially for this year. His Excellency, President Abiodun, MFR, has also approved that the libraries in Ogun State be digitalized, starting from the Simeon Adebo Library, that is the Headquarter Library. They will be digitalized. But before we do that, we want to rehabilitate the structure. When eventually we rehabilitate that structure, you might lost your way if you are looking for that building as your maybe your compass, because we will change the structure, we change the environment, make it conducive for people to come in and read.
So, Doctor, let me ask you this. Nationally now, are you comfortable with the pace of transformation we are seeing in our libraries as compared to what is obtained in developed climes?
Yeah, definitely not. But the hope is high that we will toe the right track to ensure that our services are competitive internationally. The way information is handled in developed countries should be imbibed by developing countries like Nigeria, because information services are not static. They have to be in tune with evolving technologies. And if we say we compare, in fact, we cannot compare, because we have neglected library services for too long in this country. If not because of the fact that library services are required to accredit programs in higher institutions in Nigeria, I assure you that the library was also have been neglected. So maybe a time will come when you say you want to establish a private primary school, a private secondary school, there must be a team established by government, called accreditation team, that will go around these schools to ensure that you have what it requires in terms of availability of information, availability of resources to have good education. That you will have to put this in place before your application can be considered and approved for establishment. So I think we'll get there. because library services is so crucial for anything we want to do in the human society. And I believe that with the step that had been taken now in Ogun State, for example, it's a new dawn of library services in the state. And I'm convinced that if the way it has started is sustained, then I'm sure that library services in the state will greatly improve. Because I remember when we were using the public library in my own village, we had a public library in my village at that time.
Built by the community.
It was a place where you go to prepare only for exams because they didn't have books.
Okay.
But the place was conducive. You were encouraged to come and use the place. But now the technology is here. If we do not bring in technology into the libraries, then all our clients would desert us, because that's the way. For example, I say, look, in the library, you say, hey, quiet. But now we're saying, create spaces in the place. In fact, some libraries, they say, here, you can make noise. That's what people want. They want to interact, they want to discuss, they want to yell. Because when you see kids study these days, it's different from our own case. When you go to the library and you consent so fully, they will have earphones, they're enjoying some music, and they are studying. That is the trend. So we want to bring this to the library so that the kids will be comfortable, and the libraries will be inviting to them, so they will love to come to the library. The hope is high, and I'm sure that things will improve the way we have started. And I just prayed that the tempo will be sustained for sustainable development of public library system in the state.
Okay. Now, since from all indications, library services is essential for the general social development, no doubt about it. And when we're talking about this general social development, there's no way we'll take off the private sector. Are there ways through which this usual public-private partnership could come into library services in order to provide upgraded facilities that will assist, particularly to arrest the trend of young ones not really wanting to be properly educated?
Thank you. It's a very good question. I recall sometimes, maybe 10 years ago, we were able to draw some patronage into the library because we were able to form a kind of synergy with some people and individuals in the state. We sent letters, we wrote to them, we called them to help in getting materials into the library. We were so lucky that the citizen in Chicago sent us a 20-foot container filled with current books, computers. And when we counted, we had about more than 10,000 current textbooks. Then it was 2006. We had 2006 edition of every copy of book. And it was sustained for 2-3 years. We also have Afric-Broads. They also brought books, but these were books that were used books, of course, but they were valuable. We distributed these to about 77 secondary schools in the state. We also have the Book Aid International. It's a British charity organization in London. We were able to reach out, and with the arrangement by this charity organization, we were able to get some books, valuable books, into the library. We are also planning for maybe 8 or 10 years now. We've not had any such partnership. The present dispensation, the present administration, led by Prince Dapo Abiodun, MFR, and with the caliber of person, Professor C.D. Osho, that is in the saddle of the Ministry of Education. We're also planning to reach out. In fact, we've lined up about 8 or 10 private individuals and about 6 international organizations that we're going to reach out to. We're also planning to have a Hall of Fame, and this Hall of Fame will not be done alone by government funds. We're going to reach out to individuals. I think the determining factor of getting these donors, of getting these private people, is the programs and activities of the library. We are planning to up our ante in terms of programs and activities. We're planning to have different kind of literary programs. Every season, every month, we'll be planning some programs. For example, during the Easter holidays, we plan programs for schools. Every holiday, every quarter, there will be programs for schools, and this will be complemented by private individuals and companies and organizations that will donate money, prizes to these children. So, like I said, the determining factor is the program and activities of the library. If there are no activities, there are no programs, these donors, the private individuals will not be interested. So we take our programs to them, we ask them to support us in whatever way they can. If it's in books, if it's to sponsor the program itself. So we are planning so many programs. I don't want to let the cat out of bag, especially since the Honorable Commissioner is not here. I wouldn't be spilling the...
we won't charge you for commercials.
So there are so many activities lined up, but first, I keep saying this. First, I keep saying this. The environment of the library, the structure itself is not inviting. So we're going to start from the reconstruction and probably the rehabilitation of the library building.
Okay. Now, Doctor, will it be out of place to carry the campaign of library usage to schools, particularly from the level of primary and secondary? Because from all indications, it's like we all agreed here that the usage of library for now is on the low ebb. Now, how can we get this back on track?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier on, that the concept of the state library being public library per se, that is just for the public, generality of the public, is not enough. That the Ogun State Library Services should have a synergy with schools, so that they will provide services to schools in the state. And if you like, it's not more of collaboration. When you talk about collaboration, there is a proportionate contribution by the people or by the group collaborating. What we're saying is that the public library system in the state should kind of take over the administration of libraries in schools as part of its activities. So it must be a deliberate effort, deliberate plan to include school library services in this, the programs and activities of the state library. And once this is done, the reading level, the readership level in the primary, secondary school will improve. And that's why I said we should catch them young. They will put up programs in the state library services to take care of this. And once that is done, I believe there will be improvement. And of course, there is usually this readership promotion program, that they put up programs that will promote readership, because people just don't read. And I remember in my class some time ago, I asked my students, you people celebrate your birthdays. Can any of you remember in the last maybe 5 years when someone came and gave you a book as your birthday gift? They say, yes, I was given, but it's not true. People will look for material things, flimsy things, things that will perish. They give you wristwatches, they give you some gift items, fabrics, and so on. These are temporary things that will vanish, which does not have any value added to your well-being, to your development, and to your success in life. So I hope time will come. I'm only hopeful that time will come when we promote readership, and people will want to read more. How about if I was in class and I saw one of my students holding his phone, Android phone, and usually I walk around the lecture room and they say, what are you doing? You say, yeah, yes sir, I'm taking your notes on my phone. Yeah, I just they let it go. But if it were in the past, you will seize the phone. But that area has gone. That is, we need to use technology to bring in the kids so that they will read more. So as teachers, and I'm sure they will also put up programs, when you give your students assignment, you actually send them to the library. You send them to the library, look for an item in the library that they must bring. You ask them to bring an item in the library. And you ensure that you don't give this as a group. If you give as a group assignment, only one or two of them will go, and then they would copy and give to the others. Give individual assignments to send the kids to the library. And once the library is conducive, it will be okay. Then for secondary school, for primary schools and secondary schools, then the arm of government responsible for the administration of primary and secondary schools should also be involved. The public library system should also bring them in. As I said, let them have a synergy. It's more of synergy rather than collaboration. Because when you collaborate, they expect that you give, I give. But in this case, it's very likely that it's the public library system that will be the giver, and then they will receive. And of course, if they are not paying to get the service, they will enjoy it more and imbibe it in their culture.
Okay. So, Mr. Giwa, I just wanted to peep into the future. Let's say in the next 10, 20 years, how functional do you see, what will be the functionality of the libraries?
Interesting. Perhaps I should just chip this in for our people to understand what we mean when we talk about libraries, how important they are to us. Well, I still recall my class in UI when I was doing masters in communication and language arts. There's this course, Psycholinguistic Foundation of Communication. It talks about the word in your head. The word in your head is your experience, what you have seen in life. When we talk about the library, we are talking about what people from antiquity have put down in writing, a collective of human memory of the past, of the present, in one assemblage. At the end of the day, what you have is something that you need to reach out to beyond phones, beyond Android phones, because not all have been put there. Even the Bibliothèque Nationale of Paris and the Library of Congress may not have 100% in collections in phones or in e-formats. So what I want to say is that what has been put down as human memory from antiquity, you need to have them. For example, as a human being, you could interact with 100, maybe a few hundred human beings in your lifetime, learn from them. But you are having something, millions of people have documented their ideas into books, which you need to relate to. So the word in their head that you cannot see is being put down into books, and you who don't even know them, you relate to those books and you read them. Our people do not know that we emphasize on material things.
Sorry, I have to come in at that particular point in time. We'll be taking a short break. Don't worry, we'll still have opportunity to respond to more questions. And we'll also put on the line will be on the screen for those who want to phone and possibly ask questions from the experts in the house. We take this break. We'll be back shortly.
season is here again. The People's Tele OGTV has lined up a number of interesting programs to boost your spiritual lives during and after this Lenten season. An individual, an organization, or corporate entity can avail itself of the opportunity to sponsor programs such as Lenten Talk, Easter Sunday Church Service, Good Friday Church Service, Cantata, Easter Monday Picnic, special church programs and services during the 40 days of this Lenten season. For sponsorship details, contact Jesus is Lord.
Welcome back. It's still Newdawn, and we are still looking at education and social development, place of library. And I have two distinguished personalities in the house that so far we've been looking at issues around libraries and its importance to social and educational development. I have Dr. Taufik Salisu in the house, and I also have Mr. Franklin Giwa also in the house. Together, we've been looking at issues around library and education. In this second labs of this discussion, you can also be part of it. You can call us, ask questions, or even you can also suggest maybe way forward for library and its relevance to social and educational development in this country. Mr. Giwa, now let's look at this other aspect of these library services. Virtually all professions have their own aspect of quackery, unprofessional, unethical activities. How much of this do you experience in library services?
Oh, quite a lot, quite a lot. Just like you said, there's a lot of quackery, even in the system, in librarianship. School libraries are very vital to the system because without a library in the school, you are not training those individuals to have the culture of reading.
Okay.
So, but where you emphasize that there should be a library, there should be a qualified librarian in schools, most of the proprietors of private schools and most of these school heads always go ahead to kind of have the opposite of what is desired. First, they just look for a classroom. Two, they just put some skeletal collections there, and then they just look for maybe a school sat as the librarian. In this modern age, the least you can have of a librarian is somebody with a master's degree. So let us even say for a school library, a first degree. But where you have 90% of our school libraries manned by maybe it's a clerical assistant or probably a school O-level qualified individuals, to us, that is quackery. Let me tell you, some time ago, I had a principal come to me asking that he wants to set up a library and that he has already employed an individual. I was wondering, you've not set up the library, you have employed an individual. I later got to know that this individual was just a cousin and that what he wanted is that he wants to send the individual to us. So we train the individual for 2 weeks. The individual becomes a librarian. I now told him, people have spent 8-9 years in library schools to qualify as librarians. Now you want us to now download, in quotes, everything in those 9 years into the head of an individual for 2 weeks. I told him, if you love yourself, go and employ at least a first degree holder in library and information science.
Sorry, before you go ahead, the first degree holder What about those who had national certificate in education? Because they are basically trained either for primary or secondary. And I want to believe that we also have library studies at the level of NCE. Are you saying that with NCE you cannot be a librarian?
Thank you. It's just the same way where teacher grade 2 used to be teachers. The same government now tells you that no, go ahead and get NCE before you are recognized qualified teacher.
Okay.
Now the emphasis is now go and get your first degree in education before you are recognized as a teacher. So in the same way, an NCE graduate cannot be a librarian. In fact, such an individual cannot be called a librarian because the basic is a first degree. The basic is a first degree.
Okay.
And there is a control. There's a body responsible for the control of the practice of librarianship in Nigeria, just like most professions. So this is the Librarians Registration Council of Nigeria. So before you can practice, you have to be certified by the Registration Council. So if you are not certified, then you are a quack. You cannot say you are a librarian. So the prescribed knowledge to be acquired before you are certified is well laid down, is clear. So when you get this body of knowledge and you pass prescribed examinations, then you register with, you are certified by the Librarian Registration Council of Nigeria, and you given the title CLN, Certified Librarians of Nigeria. Certified Librarian of Nigeria. If you don't have CLN, then you are not a librarian. Yes,
fine. But the issue here is, okay, I have an NCE,
yes,
and possibly, okay, presently I am still working.
Yes.
I did library studies at the NCE level.
Part of your program.
Yes. No, but we do have people who actually studied library.
It's just a tip of the iceberg that is put into the NCE program or the diploma program.
No. I'm not talking about as a subject. I'm talking about library studies as a course. That everything from your 100 level to 300 level is all about
in NCE.
Yeah.
No, it's not there.
It's not there. Okay, fine.
It's not there.
Okay.
I want to chip in here.
Yes,
what Dr. T.M. Salisu is trying to let you know is that you can have NCE library science in any federal college of education in Nigeria. What you have is probably library science, English, library science, mathematics, library science. So all those individuals are trained to teach mathematics, to teach English, probably to enhance library use in schools. That is why
that's double combination.
To enhance,
so you can take any side of if you do NCE library education, library mathematics. That means you can work on both sides because though that's not the issue I intend to push here. What I'm saying is that in the course of I am not yet to obtain a degree. Possibly I am already doing a part-time, or I am looking at a full-time much later. But what I have presently is maybe a lower qualification than degree. You said it's not in NCE. I don't know whether all librarians basically what they have is bachelors. But I thought that perhaps there are some other lower certificates for library studies, but you are in better position to tell me that. But before I get my degree, I am doing this job. Fine, I won't be called a librarian, certified librarian.
Yes,
but the job I'm doing is library services.
Yeah, you could work in a hospital and call yourself a doctor. You call yourself a doctor, we know you are not a doctor. And if you are a matron, nurses matron in the hospital for 50 years, and 50 of you as matrons put together are not equal to one doctor, one young man.
Yeah.
It's just there. Or if you say you are a doctor, yes, you are a doctor because you call yourself a doctor, but we know you are not a qualified doctor. So if you come to the library and say you are a librarian without being certified, then we know you are not a librarian. Anybody can call himself or herself what he thinks, but we know that when the chips are down, you are not professionals. And if there is any opportunity to challenge you, then you could be taken up for impersonation or whatever. So the body of knowledge to be acquired to become a librarian is very clear. And the requirement for certification to practice is also clear. And everybody who falls short of these definitely is not a librarian. That's what we say. So at best, if that person comes to the library, it could be a library clerk, it could be a library assistant. At best, it could be a library officer. But that's still not the best. He will never be called a librarian. But if he calls himself a librarian, fine. I mean, Alarangbira Gani, but that's not, but definitely we know that it's not a librarian. It's a quack, if you like.
Okay, Mr. Giwa, away from certification now, how equipped are libraries, in meeting demands of people with special needs?
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, some time ago, we tried to have a kind of session for the blind. We had collections of Braille donated by Niger Wives. Niger Wives are foreign women married to Nigeria. It's a kind of umbrella group where those women meet regularly for social and what have you. So they donated about 400 Braille material to the library, and we opened a session for that Braille. But unfortunately, the person in charge of special needs education was not quite happy because of the structural defects of the Simeon Adebo Library, because the blind people cannot climb. There are so many steps. So a few of the blind that came there complained that they have had to climb so many steps that there are no walkways for the blind to access the materials. So these materials were taken to the special needs school in Adigbe. So, well, like I said, we have noted most of these structural defects, and that's why we are repositioning. We know we are not where we ought to be. We are repositioning, and better days are here.
So what about the conversion of, the contents of those books to Braille materials, especially for the blind?
Well, you realize that there are equipment and machines required to, punch those holes and turn them to what they should be. Fortunately, there are individuals who have been donating those materials, who have been making those materials, but it's not too bad if, as a library, we have those equipment and we start transcribing most of our collection into Braille. Like I said, we are moving towards that line. We are repositioning, so we are moving towards that line.
Okay, as a body of professionals, are you also looking in the direction of developmental training for professionals as a panacea for, because don't let us deceive ourselves. I don't have verifiable statistics on my hand, but I can say from observation that I'm not too sure whether we have enough librarians, even if all the schools would need to have their libraries. What is the body of librarians doing?
Yeah, it's what the State Library Board, the State Library Services had done,
yes,
with the strong support of the Commissioner for Education, who has Education, Science and Tech, who has passion for library services.
Okay, sorry sir, we have a caller, Shegun from Okearegba. Hello Shegun.
Hello sir.
Good morning.
Good morning sir.
Yes, what's your question or contribution?
Sir, I want to ask if you want to be a librarian, what do you need?
Okay, if you want to be a librarian, what subjects should you take?
Yes sir.
All right, thank you, Shegun. Our guests in the house will respond to you. You can keep on watching us and listening. Maybe you finish with that one, then you can respond to that question he has asked.
Yes, what was done in the last few days, we came in on Tuesday. We had experts in various aspects of libraries. We had from school library media resources, public libraries, academic libraries, professionals, those who are practicing. Then we also have professors in the various aspects of library and information science. So we came in to rub minds. That, I think this is one of the best things that happened to library services in the state. That we have somebody, like he said, a round peg and a round hole, who has passion for library services. So, and we believe, and before we rose last night, we came to a conclusion that this kind of program should be firmly established on a regular basis. So as a way to ensure capacity building for the practicing librarians. And I will tell you that the issue of capacity building is very essential because of the evolving technologies. If I may use myself as an example, when I was doing my doctorate program in the US, it was like the trend at that time, we call it new media in the library. Microfilm, microfiche, micropeg, transparencies, and so on. But no sooner after that, because at the time I did my PhD, there was no computers, not even desktop.
Hello?
Not to talk of laptop.
Hello, Tunde.
Yeah.
Hello,
So
Tunde.
I want to ask the guest in the house.
Okay.
So you said the library, how many of them, what is the totality of the department in Nigeria now? How to look from the guest to the student?
I don't get that question clearly.
Hello?
Hello. Can you come? Can you come again?
Yes. I think how many of the guests in society now do you have in society in the school?
How many librarians or libraries?
The librarian, the so-called librarian now.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. If I may just, I think he's asking about how many professional librarians or something that we have presently. I don't know what.
That would be too easy to tell. But as I was saying,
Yeah.
the issue of capacity building is very crucial so that professionals can be updated.